Welcome back to the Florida Band Podcast. You know why you're here. My name is Christian, the band director at West Glades Middle School in Parkland, Florida.
And I'm Andrew Lopez, the band director at Coniston Middle School in West Palm Beach. You didn't do the intro you said you were going to do.
Oh, yeah. I know. Okay, hang on. Welcome to the Florida Band Podcast.
Shoot me.
And AJ Arcia is not with us today. He died. No, just kidding.
Dude, you know what? That's exactly what popped in my head. I was like, he's no longer with us. I was like, oh no.
I know when I said he's not with us, that was the first thing I thought of.
He's sick.
No, he has like COVID 7.4 or like RSV or I don't know what he's got. He's got the plague. He's sick.
He's got COVID Yosemite, the Yosemite software.
COVID Zeta.
Okay. But he's taking the day off. But
we really don't know what he has. He told me yesterday he tested for everything and everything came up negative. So it's probably just a really bad cold.
Oh, so he got it yesterday and was just like feeling like garbage?
No, he got it Friday.
Ooh.
He got it Friday. And he had just gotten over being sick. And the same thing happened to Kaylin. And the same thing happened to me. All at different times, though. So. Was
it same symptoms?
Probably. Sounds like it. Sneezing, coughing, and chest. Like you can't talk without coughing, you know?
Yikes.
I'm pretty sure mine was just either a cold or just sinusitis. And because it was starting in my nose and then it would move to my chest.
It's funny because sinusitis means that you're allergic to sinus.
Well, that's what it's called on the internet. Google it.
Sinusitis?
Sinusitis.
I'm doing it right now.
It's a thing.
Marissa's sick. She's still operating, but like she just did her lessons, but she's just like, she has like, yesterday she had a cough and then a head cold. And then today it's just congestion. So it's like, it's the body just trying to get, it's like Kramer, or it's like, I just got a cough so I can get the germs out of me. He's like
the
coughing
logic
everywhere.
There. Solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so she's sick. I'm purposely avoiding her because I'm like, I don't really want to, but be sick.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I don't want to be with her, but
I mean, she is a pain.
No,
I'm just kidding.
I mean, that's on record. No, that's cool. But she's feeling it. But I think she just finished her lesson, so she's probably just gonna lay down. But yeah, man, like what day is it? February 5th. We are recording.
My mom's birthday. Mom, if you're listening, happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Christian's mom.
She's now a senior citizen, according to her, 55, which I thought 65 was senior, but...
Nah, man, 55.
55.
Once you get over the hill, like, it's just, gravity takes over.
I thought the hill was 40.
Nah, over the hill is 50.
Oh, yeah, I mean, every month she has a different surgery for this or that, because, you know, gravity or whatever. So.
Right. Well, every old person that I know now has back problems, because, like, my dad has back problems. My dad has like really hardcore sciatica, and then now my mom has. She was saying that she's got some disc problems, and then Marissa's mom has disc problems, and I'm like, damn, that's just gravity wins, man. That's not cool.
I'm fighting my disc problems. So far, right. I've been keeping it at bay. It's been good. There's something else I was gonna say. Oh, our cat, it's got alopecia.
What is that?
It's when your hair falls out.
So wait, so Felix or Ollie?
Ollie.
Oh God.
Yeah. So
really?
We went to the vet. Yeah, he went to the vet a week ago, and the assistant was like, "What's going on behind his ear here?" And he just had this bald spot behind his ear, and we're like, "Well, we don't know actually. Maybe Felix is just beating him up when we're not looking or something." And so they were like, all right, keep an eye on it. And then 2 days later, we noticed it was behind both ears and around his neck where his collar was. And so we went back again yesterday. And they're like, it could be ringworm or it could be mange mites. But ringworm is super unlikely. Mange mites are super hard to find, but is more common. But we're going to try and see if we can find them anyway. So they had to scrape hair off of where his hair was falling out, and they had to scrape skin cells, and He took it like a champ, which is good. He's a good cat. But then they didn't find any, but they're like, just give him the medicine for it anyway. So now he's got to take this medicine once a month for 8 months. It's like just put it on the skin around his neck, at the top of his neck, and he should be good to go. So he's been fine since. But
Lila had a problem similar to that when we were in Quantum, like not the apartment before Mirabella. The apartment before Mirabella Villas.
Welcome to Mirabella Villas.
Yeah, it's the apartment before that. She was losing hair behind her ears, and she was losing hair above her left eye, but we just deduced that it was a scratching problem, and eventually it went away. Like, and it wasn't completely bald in any spots, but like her ears were definitely thinning. And we were worried maybe it was fleas or something or mites, but eventually, like, we were like, once we left that apartment, it stopped, and then it picked up again a little bit over summer, but she's okay. So I was like, wait, we're of the mindset of like, let's see what happens, and then if the cat is completely naked, then we have a problem. But anyway, we're the Florida Band podcast.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to relate to us on a personal level at all. So we're gonna shut up and we're gonna move on.
Yeah, who the hell cares about us?
So on Friday we had a little back and forth, the three of us, and we were talking about pass offs. You had brought up. Why don't you share what you did? You said something about you got 41 pass offs in a day or something. What
it was I only did so like this past week, just because of the way the schedule and like what I've been wanting to get done and what's needed to get done in preparation for like solo and ensemble and stuff. Instead of doing all pass off day on one day, like the beginners have been on one day and the veterans have been on another. And I've also been doing the thing where I used to do pass offs during lunch period, because lunch period used to be like 120 minutes. And with like 30 of those minutes being allotted towards lunch, and then another 20 of those minutes we were supposed to do some school SEL activity that I never did. I just did pass off time instead. So I'd always cut class short to around like 45, and then they'd have like 40 minutes of pass off time, which is a normal class period, like in terms of how much really gets done. And it always worked out that way. Lunch period has not changed. I don't have as much time. So if I were to do lunch, pass off day on lunch period, it's awkward because it's a little too long for pass offs for middle school. Like it's like over an hour, and that's too long. And then it's also not long enough to do both content and pass offs. So what I've been doing is now I like this week, the beginners, I think I did 2 beginning classes, had pass off day on Monday or Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday. And then the other beginning class had pass off time on Wednesday. And then the veterans had pass off time on Friday, both symphonic band and wind ensemble, just because I'm just trying to avoid the lunch period. But they still all got it within 5 days. So the ratio was still fine. But it was the idea of this time, instead of patrolling the classroom and just taking a lap and then having kids record when I wasn't able to get to them, I posted up in the corner with a chair and a stand, and I was like, come, if you think you're ready for an attempt, come check me out. And in symphonic band and wind ensemble, it was 40 pass-offs submitted, which I don't really know if that's, it's pretty high. They're not even 40 pass-offs submitted, it was 40 pass-offs passed. Because there were like, with the kids that showed up first where there was no line, I was like, well, there's no line, so I'm just going to keep working off you until you get it right. And then they got their pass off in. They're like, oh yeah, great, and they walk away. So I left feeling like it was, I couldn't tell. Like after the kids left, I was like, I couldn't tell if I did a lot of pass offs or not. So I just counted and how many I got in for that day, and I was like, oh wow, 41 in 2 classes, which passed, which is pretty good.
That's good.
So I was like, interesting. So I texted Christian and AJ, and I was like, I know Christian does this, and Christian, you this is kind of what you're going to speak to, but Christian does it, and AJ was saying that he's been doing it all year, and I felt a little silly, but it was just the idea of trying something different. Definitely made a positive difference. So what we're talking about today is, what are we? 10 minutes into the episode. What we're talking about today is just the idea of how to change things up, how to sneak pass-offs in, how to sneak opportunities and give kids in person more opportunities and keep things fresh during your pass-off time to make the most of it. if you're doing pass offs in a similar fashion to what we do. So go for it, dude.
So yeah, I told you I've been working my off, and I sent y'all a screenshot because I'm just kind of like, how the did I do this? But I know how I did it because I did it on purpose, right? So I have 103 beginners, and they've all completed since the first week back of January. So I guess the last 2 or 3 weeks, 276 pass offs completed. And I only have, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 kids in beginning band that have not completed a pass off yet. And what I started with is something I've already been doing for a while, is the Q3 SMART goals. And that's been like the first Mindset Monday of the quarter for a while now. But I took an idea from Kaylin, and what she had them write down the 6 pass offs they want to complete for the quarter and put it at the front of their binder, either on the front cover if they have like an opening where they can slide it through, or in a page protector at the very front of their binder. So I just made the Mindset Monday a worksheet because I was noticing that the kids would do the Mindset Monday. Some of them would wait because they take advantage of the fact that I don't take off late points. They would wait to do it and it would be pointless at that point. Some of them would do it, in a timely manner. And I just texted it to you, by the way. Some of them would do it in a timely manner, but they would forget what they typed in because they hit submit and then they forget about it. So I was like, Kaylin, that's kind of smart. Actually, that's really smart. So I'm going to do that too. So I made it a worksheet, printed it out, and I was like, if you did this online, just pull it up from online, write it down. If you didn't do it online, you don't have to do it online. Sit here and do it. And I made sure every kid did it. And when they turned it in, I looked at it. And if anything didn't make sense on it, I told them what didn't make sense, make it make sense, and then bring it back until I got every kid's. And then I photocopied them the next day so that I would have a copy for myself. And then I gave them back the worksheet and had them put it at the front of their binder. So now every time they get ready for class, they are looking at their goals. Even if it's just for a split second, it helps. And then we also had all county
I'm looking at it now.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Let me know if there's anything on there you want to talk about.
Yeah, I'll chime in.
Actually, let me just give like a brief overview of what's on it.
Well, so we got the pass off SMART goals and just the definition of it.
Definition of a SMART goal: specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely.
And then got the
I
grade.
remind them about how they earn their grade for their completed pass offs. Like,
see, I've always been hesitant to give them, let them do the math, but I kind of like that transparency of like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to do the math because like if you're a kid who only cares about a B, like only do 4. Like okay, because it's also they're continuing to do them every week, and you're kind of meeting the expectation per kid.
Correct.
I do.
I'm
get
just
that
noticing that the more transparent I am with the type of kids we're teaching nowadays, the more they appreciate it.
Yeah, I was talking with Marissa about that this morning. I vibe that. Go on.
Yeah. And then I put an ideal pass off level pacing, meaning like by when should you be on level 1, level 2, or completed those levels, and just kind of mapped it out for them. And then I asked them 5 questions. The first one is, how many pass offs will you aim to attempt per week? And then how many will you aim to pass per week? And they can be honest here, And then I asked them, tell me the 6 pass offs you want to complete this quarter. You're going to tell me what level it's on, what number it is on that level, and the date you want to complete it by. And then I asked them, what are you going to do if you, what action will you take if you have trouble, what action will you take to reach your goal? And then I asked them, why do you want to complete the pass-offs? And whatever reason they give, it should be reasons beyond earning a good grade. And then I have them write down the pass-off due date for that quarter at the very bottom.
I have something.
You know what we should do? We should make this like a free resource.
Oh yeah, totally, dude.
when we publish the episode. So we'll do that.
Well, I have an idea to add. It's something that I do that you haven't put on here on the smart board. And I have them write it down on their in their binder. Per quarter, I tell them in order for you to be quote unquote on track, per the average kid, is I give them a number of how many submitted. And what I say is I'm like, average per district. I'm like, if you want to be considered an average, eighth grader, in terms of ability and basically where you're on track, you should have something like last quarter was 60 pass offs. If you've done at least 60 pass offs in 3 years at this point, you can be considered yourself quote unquote on track. And like through the beginners it was 14 and that kind of thing, just to provide that extra data. And it really spurred the beginners, because they're like, wait, they only had the seventh graders only need to have 30 something, bet. And then a bunch of them got a bunch in. So
yeah, I actually did that
data
on our last pass off day for the beginners. I put just FYI, you should have, I can't remember what number, I think it was 16 to be considered on level. And then I pulled up the whole roster so that they could see. And then another cool thing actually that relates to that is, since we've been focusing on each quarter and not focusing on their total number of pass offs over time, I pulled up the total and I was showing them, their totals. And a lot of kids were feeling down because first quarter they were near the top of their section because, they were really excited. And then the second quarter they were not towards the top of their section because I based it on the total for that quarter, not overall. Right. But then when I pulled up the overall and they saw that they were at the top, they were like, oh, that's interesting. I had no idea. And I was like, yeah, I did that on purpose. I want you guys to focus on small goals, and I want you to learn how focusing on the smaller goals can help you achieve big goals. And they really appreciated that. So that was another thing I did. So that's exactly in line with what you were saying. So right. I think that's a good idea, but that also adds to that transparency as well.
Yeah, and I think the transparency, I'm just looking at your stuff, I've noticed that about you in particular. Your philosophy this year has been very, very transparent, and I think it's worked. And where I've been transparent and not so much of a hard ass, it does pay off. And I think that's a lesson that everybody can learn from. It's just especially because kids these days, kids these days, I feel like their ability to access information is so easy that it's almost like they can tell when you're withholding information. Because they can sense they can sense the gaps in logic, and the gaps in the gaps in that logic. They may not even raise questions towards it, but it's just the vibe of and reading the room. They can really tell. It's why, and it's why for the seeking to understand, but it's also why because they can pick up on the logic of where things are missing. And I have found that transparency has helped. This is interesting. This kind of reminds me of Andy Poor's stuff, and having those conversations where, you know what I mean?
Maybe. I mean, he kind of talks about goals, but I don't know if he does anything like this.
Well, he, the most interaction that I have with him was when he presented at Midwest 4 years ago, when I met you guys, and he would talk about how he would work these through with his individual students and how they, they're mapping their own goals and they're gaining that accountability, so that way they can, as time goes on, they get more sensitive to what really is realistic and what is not, so that way they're giving themselves measurable goals that they can be happy with.
Yeah, the goals need to be measurable for sure.
Yeah. And then and that way they can avoid that burnout, because they're not going so hard, and then the first time they hit a wall, they crumble, and they're like, well, I don't know about this. I don't know about this class, because
you have to be there and you have to be ready for the wall. Because I tell them the wall is when you actually start learning.
Yeah.
So I really encourage them to hit that wall as fast as possible.
Sure. And it's just the idea, that logic makes sense, where it's just the idea of, well, now, yes, you do have to try, but that's not a bad thing. That's okay. I had a student who's just man, pass off's been really tough. Seventh grader, he And this is something I also experienced that, maybe we can speak to it, is I had a 7th grader in the second quarter finish level 2 in the top band and get to level 3. And he got all the way up to second chair because he wasn't going to catch the first chair because first chair's got like 100 something. And it pissed off all the 8th graders and they crushed him. Where like it was just, each of them submitted like 10 or 15 and then he was back at the bottom. And now this quarter you can kind of see the frustration on his face where he's like, I did all that work and it really paid off because that was what motivated him at the time. And now he's like, well, what the heck's the point? Because I'm going to work really hard and they're just going to do it again. And I've noticed that in a couple other sections. So it's explained to them, well, like, that's okay because they're supposed to be ahead of you logically. Like it's okay that you're working really hard. Just focus on yourself. Like just get your 6 in and have a good day.
Well, honestly. Really it's if that's all you can do, then that's okay. And you really shouldn't be comparing in that way. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Exactly.
So really if and I have that Dr. Tim quote, in my room. And it says something along the lines of, if the point of competing is so that others lose, then you've lost as well. Right. So, and really the gain of doing a lot of pass-offs is you become better at your instrument, period. That's the main goal there. All right. Yeah. Big tangent over. But very thoughtful tangent. The other thing I did is we had all county bands, so I had a lot of time to sit and do stuff on the computer. So I went through my roster. Basically, I was looking at my pass-off data and emailed all parents of students that were behind in one way or another. And I told them exactly what they should focus on first and how I can help them. And if they had questions, to just let me know. And I framed it as, I'm starting an email thread for the whole quarter, and I'm going to keep in touch with you the whole quarter on their progress. And this is just finished week 2 of that. And I did go back through my email and update every parent that I contacted, whether it be, hey, they got caught up, or they're working really hard, or hey, I still haven't seen this pass off yet. Whatever it was, I did check back with them again. So I'm going to make sure I do that again next week because it's really helped.
Sure. That sounds cool. It's also, how often what is the percentage of parents that are replying and like there?
Most of them are replying. Percentage, I mean, out of 30, I think it was like 33. I think there's 3 that I didn't hear from. But then if I didn't hear from that parent, I will have pulled that kid to the side and just checked on them, do a wellness check. Hey, what's going on? Your dad working a lot, or did he get my email, or are they able to get you the items you need? How can I help you? So that's what I would do. Okay. For that. And then a thing that the kids have really been enjoying is I added 10 minutes of pass off focus every class. And to help me keep track with that, I set alarms on my phone for when I'm going to do counting, breathing, pass off, whatever pass off it is, Technique Builder, and Essential Elements book. So this week I focused on the long tone pass offs just to get a feel for how it was going to go. And, I like to make things fun. So I turned the lights off and I put the TE tuner on the screen using my iPad. So it filled up the whole screen, which was cool. And I had the kids pull out their tuners and clip them on if they had them. And if they didn't, I was like, just watch the screen. And we all just played the long tones together. And I had the percussionist play something as well. I used a metronome at 60 beats per minute so they had something to play. And we would play the long tone for 10 seconds. And then I asked who would like to pass it off right now. And the hands would shoot up. And I count them off. And they play. And if they pass it, I say, congrats, you passed. Sometimes I would say, class, did did they pass? And they would say, yep. Or they'd say, not sure. Because they could all see the tuner as well on the screen. And then I would put all that in while they're playing the long tone again. And then I'd have another. And then we'd all play it again. I'd have another. If there was feedback, I said, everyone pay attention. He could get this note in tune if he made sure his instrument was at the proper length. Okay, moving on. Let's all play together. And then eventually, as the week went on, I would say, how could so-and-so have passed this long tone? And they would start giving advice that I would give, like, oh, they should relax their shoulders so that the pitch isn't too high, or things like that. So that was really cool. But I would only do 10 minutes. And if they slowed me down, I said, okay, there's just less kids that can pass this off. And then they would be quiet and get in line that way. And then when we would do the technique builder, I would recall exercises in the technique builder that are pass offs, and I would make sure I spend time on that and basically do the same thing. We would rep the pass off as a class and then let a kid try it, rep it, try it. And it was just continuous. And then the same with the Essential Elements book. We would spend the first part repping a song that's a pass off, and then we'd spend the last part moving ahead in the book. So
you have been allowing them to do. So you've begun the idea of, because a lot of people do this, is making sure that you're letting kids try them off in the middle of class, like in that moment.
Yeah, Heather Lundahl style, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's not an original idea. A lot of people do that. And yeah, but it's still pass fail, and it's not playing test type thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, and it's one try. I don't let them try it more than once.
Got it.
Yeah, and they want to raise their hand a second time, and I say, you already tried. Sorry. Next.
No, I get that. That makes sense. Oh, even if it's a different pass off, like let's say one kid does, the long tone pass off, and then it's time to do line 73 and 75. Mm-hmm. Could they choose that? Could they do that one too, or you already got one in for the day? Try it. Let someone else play.
Oh no. They could try it then, but
got it.
They could try that. So, and then sometimes I move I think on Friday we were doing concert C long tone, and I still had 3 minutes left, but no one was raising their hand, so I had extra time for the next thing, which was technique builder. So it works. It works out. But the key, I think, for me was making sure I set those alarms, because I lose track of time really easy. So those alarms go off, and the kids are like, "Why does your phone keep going off?" I just ignore it, right? And I just turn it off and I move on.
Yeah.
And then I made sure I posted the chairs every single day, and I encouraged them to sit where they deserve to sit, and that activated other kids as well. Like, I know I'm better than that kid. Why are they sitting ahead of me? So they would send pass-offs in. And then I think that same pass-off day where I told them you should have this many pass-offs to be considered, quote, on level or on pace. I also told them, like, hey, if you are on level 1, there's no way on earth I will be putting you in any band other than concert band. No matter how good you think you are, how much I love you, or how much Starbucks you buy me, I'm putting you in concert band. And then I said, if you're on level 2, then you have a chance of being in symphonic band, but there's no guarantee. There's only one way to guarantee your spot, and that's being on level 3. And then that sparked a lot of questions, and they were like, well, how many pass-offs are on level 2? And have you ever had a beginner make it to level 3? And, this and that. So I would answer those questions, because transparency it's really what helps them understand, like, okay, I feel like I can do that. Oh, I feel like I can't do that. Or, a lot of people that I know right now are going to be in concert band, so that should be okay. Things like that. So, and that's over the span. Most of that stuff I started 2 weeks ago. The pass off stuff in class, I started this past week, and I did it every single day, except our pass off day, which was Thursday. Right. And then for that pass off day and for the one the week before, the kids that are severely behind, I called them up first, because they need the attention. So the ones that are severely behind, it was like 10. Like the first week it was like 10 or 12, and then this past week it was like 7. Called them up and let them go first, and then I went around the room.
Got it. So you did a combo. Got
Yeah.
it. Yeah, no, I don't mind doing the idea of calling them up or not calling them up like that, because I that was a part of what got a couple kids like in my second band, like my symphonic band. There were like 3 girls who've been struggling, and they all 3 of them got like 2 or 3 passed, because I was like, I know you can play, you just need the support of me lording over you. But even if that's what it takes, that's what it takes, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's all holding them accountable.
Yeah, eventually the spark will light. And like I always tell the kids too, I'm like, there's a certain point of level 2 where you just gain facility. I was like, there's no, and they're like, I was like, it's not really a number. It's like, it's the students that just kind of wake up in level 2. It's not that they do these specific pass offs and that leads to X. It's they just do a certain number. And once you get over the hump of doing half of level 2, at that point, you've got everything you need to just keep going. Because in terms of basic knowledge and the ability to count,
they don't really understand that. Yeah, they don't really understand that they have the skills to do all of level 2. Because they did level 1.
And I tell them, like, guys, level 2, the hardest rhythm is a dotted quarter. And for the brass, I'm like, honestly, the hardest rhythm is a dotted quarter. They forget that they do dotted quarters on level 1. That's the thing. Exactly, because it's in line 118. It's on line 118, and then if you wanted to, where it shows up, like you're doing, you guys have been doing dotted quarters since November, if that, maybe October. Like, it's okay. And then also teaching the brass, the highest you go in level 2 is a high E flat, quote unquote high, like. That's as high as you go. And I'm like, woodwinds, all the scales are in the lower octaves, so just do it. Like, whatever, dude. But
there's also pass offs that build up to that. There's the slurring pass off. There's number 132 or 133 in the book. Yeah, builds them up to that. Like, the scales. And obviously.
And my favorite part about 133 is, which for everybody, 133 is, we're talking about line 133 in Essential Elements. My favorite part about that pass off is just getting them to count the first measure correctly. Because you always get the ba 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 na ba ba na ba, and I'm like, no. And
I also get the da 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 da. It's so weird.
Yeah, or so weird. Or the ba 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 da ba, where they play the natural, and I'm like, dude, like, but it's that part pass off in particular is usually one of my favorite to teach, because you're right, it bridges the gap. Because if they can play that, pretty much everybody can now add. They have the range for a concert C scale, and then that pass off's taken care of as long as they're reading their key signature, and then you've got that's an easy jump into concert D flat, which is just one note from concert E flat. And it's like, I always like getting to want to pass off 17, which is 173, as soon as possible. And what I've started doing this year is teaching a lot of the pass offs in level 2 out of order, because the range for 173 isn't that hard. It's not high. And then, the range, and everybody and their mom knows the Mozart, ba, ba, da, 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 da. So everybody, like, it's, I've figured out which pass offs to kind of teach out of order. Yeah, and it just kind of lines itself up.
I kind of don't want to even put numbers on pass offs, because they can really be done in any order. But for organizational purposes, they've got numbers.
No, that makes sense. The one thing that I've always ailed over, and I don't really know if there's a way to do it without sacrificing the organizational aspect, is that the pass off sheets are always so wordy. Like, I've tried editing it myself to be like, is there, because and like you and I don't read, let alone 13-year-olds,
right?
So it's just the idea of, like,
they're very specific instructions. Yeah, and I try to do as little words as possible without sacrificing them doing it incorrectly. But what I'm finding is they still do it incorrectly. So I don't know. I do plan on looking at that this summer and seeing, if there's a fresher way that I can were some of those pass offs, but
Right. Because
Yeah.
I've seen some people will do their pass off sheet in just like a blanket checklist, and like the instructions are very simple, but also those tasks are mostly playing related where all you have to do is list the exercise. Whereas the system that we use is much more involved in the theory and the knowledge and it's of a lot of like 50% of every level in the first two levels is concept driven, where once you get to level 3, you can play your instrument, so it's pretty much just it's mostly performance based. But like half of level 2 is concepts, and majority of level 1 is concepts, and everything on level 0 is a concept except for pass off 5 or whichever one is the mouthpiece one. But
I
there's
mean,
so
even
many
that's a concept, really.
Yeah, but like every pass off, there are so many pass offs in the first 3 levels that are pure knowledge concepts that it's hard to illustrate exactly how you want them to perform the demonstration of the concept without using as many words as you can, which that explanation itself was too wordy, but whatever. Chris is like on his phone.
I'm not. No, I'm not. You made a good
He's
point.
like, I'm not
You made a good
paying
point.
Yeah.
It took a lot of words to say why they're wordy, but I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. And I think it's and it's coming up with different ways to keep the pass offs fresh and keep them moving. I've actually had a lot of, it was weird when, after FMEA, I guess word had spread about your session where not everybody was able to go to it because it was lined up with a Mike Antman one. And I'm sure that one got a lot more traffic just because of who was presenting it.
Who's Mike Antman? I don't know.
I know. Right. But, I had like a couple people, asking me about, what I do for pass offs because they were like, we know you use that system. Like, how does it work? And I've explained to a lot of people. Like, and I actually got a couple emails from colleagues on Friday. Like, how does in more Title I situations of like, how does the submissions work? Because like these kids don't have cameras at home. And I was like, well, they have a Chromebook. And they're like, well, they broke the Chromebook. And I'm like, right, middle school. And then. How she was basically just asking the same question that I was asking you guys of like, what are more ways to sneak in submissions? And I gave her the suggestions of like, you could do them in class if you wanted to. You could also, in terms of class time and not pass off time. Also, you've touched on it, and I know I do it too. When the kids are warming up at the beginning of class, just jumping in there. Like if you hear a kid, like you'll hear a kid who's like they can do the pass off. You walk up to them and just knock it out, kind of thing. Or, I'll allow the kid be like, hey, Mr. Lopez, can I try this pass off? Like as they're packing up, like I'll just let them do it. Because if they're late, it's not my problem. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And so I was kind of giving them suggestions on where to sneak more of those pass offs in, and then I gave the suggestion that we talked about on Friday, where I'm posting up in the corner and accepting a line for the concept of getting their attempts in, which. As they're doing their attempts, they'll also get more pass offs in anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's been interesting getting that concept. It was really side tangent. It was really funny. After All County, one of the rehearsals, a bunch of band directors went out to a restaurant, and there was this group of high school band directors. And then there was a group of like 3 or 4 band directors middle school band directors at the same table. And all the high school band directors were just talking about the literature. They were just talking about literature for like 40 minutes. And then you listen over on our side and we're like, yeah, man, dude, watching like this technique and trying this to get this response and talking about pass offs and like progression concepts and things like that. It was very interesting. Because John Jarvis, the owner of Music Man, who's not a band director and never has been, piloted, kind of like floated between the two conversations, and he was like, wow, this is really different. I was like, well, yeah, like hopefully by the time they get to high school they can play their instrument, so all you're doing is talking about literature. Mm-hmm. Whereas middle school people are very technique driven by nature. Are there what other things have you tried?
That's all I've been doing the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
The stuff in class has been just this last week. And then that's
you
it.
working your ass off.
Yeah.
I dig it.
I mean, did you email 30 plus parents about their pass offs? That took a lot of time. And
No.
and yeah, I'm sweating after each class because we're doing this. Oh, alarm. All right, moving to this. Oh, moving to this. I have to keep them quiet. I got 50 plus kids in each beginner class because they won't give me a third beginner class. I'm not going to talk about why.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm mulling over now is kind of incorporating some of that stuff into concert and symphonic band classes, but that's tough with MPA coming up. So
Right.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, and please share when you do, because it's always interesting to exchange those ideas. Yeah, like I've got 3 beginning bands, so it's only maybe 30-ish kids per class, but it's just the idea of keeping things moving, and I've trying to make sure we cram as much in there as possible. Like, and it was you and I talked about it last year, where you're trying to cram so much. And you cram so much into the beginning band year, so they learn conceptually so many things. Because when they become 7th graders, it's such a fight. Because that's the 7th grade
in
way.
6th grade they're sponges. They are ready to receive, and then when they get to 7th grade, a lot of them turn to stone.
I
sad.
just don't get it. It's so
Hormones.
sad. And yeah. The weirdest thing is seeing 7th graders in the top band. Because in the first half of the year, it's part of they realize how behind they are and also how much they can catch up and how much there is to how much new content and new pass offs there is to cover, because all these kids have already done it before, so we're just kind of glossing over it. And then they get them all up, and then they become just like an 8th grader. They're like second half of the year, it's just like,
yeah, some of them do, because they're like, well, is my class is going to be the same next year? Why should I take it again? Some of them do that.
Exactly.
Some of them are fine. They stay and they keep getting better. They make All-State or something, and then yeah, some of them crumble under the pressure and wish they were in the second band instead of the top band, and it's a mix. Yeah. It's a mix.
Yeah, it is. It is.
When it comes to 8th graders, though, God, they get so mean.
You think so?
A lot of them just get mean. Yes.
I don't encounter that. Go on. Maybe that's a clientele problem. What do you go
I've
on?
noticed it every year, even in Georgia. They just get mean, man.
Really?
Because they don't want to be there anymore. Just in general, like they don't want to be in middle school anymore. They're ready for the next thing. But then they also think everyone's mean to them, not realizing that they're being mean. You know what I mean? Like, I hear it from the students, and I hear it from some of their parents too. Like, hey, so and so told me that this happened in your class, or I kept this student home today because they feel like no one likes them, and so we need to have a talk and things like that.
Interesting.
It's like, yeah, it's like they care a lot about what other people think, but then they don't. But then they're like, don't judge me, but they're judging others. It's just, it's hormones. I mean, I was there. I did it too. You grow out of it though, but like, it's just something I'm not going to understand, because it's like, if you think about how they were in 6th grade and how much they loved band, and band was life, and they were constantly bugging you about band this, band that, can't wait for 7th grade, 8th grade band, this, that. But then they get there.
Yeah.
And they're like embarrassed to be in band, or they're embarrassed that they were ever that hardcore in 6th grade. Like we talked about the Shrekism thing, right? So those kids that brought it to our band are now in 8th grade. And one of them literally said, like, I brought it up in her class, and she goes, that's embarrassing. Let's not talk about that. Like,
yeah.
But that's adolescence.
No, I get it, because it's I don't know if I experience the meanness. I do agree with the idea of being jaded, where it's like, or I'll be like, yeah, man, you're such a band kid. And they're like, I'm not a band kid. I'm like, you're a kid in band, but like, go ahead and just rearrange that sentence. But it's also the idea of, for me, I've always really tried to make it like a set, like, you're an 8th grader in band, it's a celebration, like you made it, like we did it, and Marissa tries to she doesn't exclusively visit the top band, but like she really, whenever she comes to the top band, it's a party. And it's, the trick is just getting them to maybe, I say the trick as if I know the answer, but I don't, but it's like, maybe the trick is just getting them to, because you're right, they're sick of middle school. they're ready for the next thing. How can we get them back in that 6th grade-esque mentality of high school band? Because that keeps them motivated. Before Marissa showed up, my 8th graders would tap out after MPA. Like that last spring concert, getting them to care about learning their parts for the most fun music of the year. Getting them to care about learning their parts was always such a fight. Because
for the spring
they didn't
concert?
because they did after MPA, they didn't really see a future going into high school because they weren't intending on continuing because the band director that was there didn't get in their faces often.
Right,
about
but
it.
I mean, at the same time, you go, hey, it's your last middle school concert, and if you pick something super fun, they'll learn it.
They usually do, but you know what I mean? Like the sense of jadedness and the meanness didn't really ever come out until the very end, where they're like, I know I'm not picking this instrument up past May 29th, so like why give it? Whereas that has been slightly mitigated with Marissa at the helm because we make the spring concert like a big party where they get to hang out with the high school, like the 8th graders are. Only the 8th graders are invited to this after concert party with the high schoolers in the high school band room doing high school band games, being treated like a high schooler. While Marissa does like a parent meeting, so we kind of like trap the parents there and go haha. But it's we've been doing those things to kind of mitigate that. But I remember before she got there, like a lot of kids would be like, Mr. Lopez, I just don't care, and I'm like, you know what, man, stop that. You. Mm-hmm. Just stop that. But it's true. I can buy the meanness of it, where they're just kind of like they don't care anymore, and why care?
Well, I think it just comes down to them like realizing or they're either forgetting why being in band or whatever is important to them, or they never figured it out in the first place.
Right.
Because I could come back to any of these 8th graders that are getting ornery. I can always come back to them and point to examples like, you remember when you did like 30 pass-outs in a quarter? Do you remember when you were in here every morning trying to do this or just hanging out? Like, do you know how I let you come before school every day just to hang out? You know how I take you on field trips and I give you candy and things like that? Are you sure you want to be like, band is dumb? And they always freeze like, ugh.
Yeah, I had that
Actually,
conversation
one came
we
full
had
circle. Let me go ahead, and then I got to tell you
go
something
on.
else. Okay.
Well, it was we had the conversations of recruiting for next year and like retaining because kids are picking their electives, the 6th and 7th graders, and I was just like, y'all could go to another elective, but understand that you're only going to be in that elective for a semester, and then you're going to get randomly tossed to an elective that you didn't pick, like dance. And then and then you could just be with us, even if you're playing your instrument's not your favorite thing, like, you like being in the room. So just be in the room. Also, we have movie nights. Also, we have field trips. Also, we do this. Also, we do that. You're not going to get that in your art class, which if you want to go draw, but, or hang out with us, and it's a lot of catering to the kids where maybe pass-offs themselves and just getting better at your instrument isn't why you joined. And I was having that conversation saying, like, that's okay. If you're only here because you want to go on the end of the year field trip, great. I don't care. If you're only here for the swag, great. I don't care. If you're only here because you like me and you hate your instrument, that's okay. If you're here because you want to get better at your instrument and do the mission, that's okay too. But yeah, what were you saying?
I had a student when she was in 6th grade. She defended the Mindset Mondays when some older kid was talking bad about them, like, I hate them. And she was like, I don't understand why we do them, this and that. And the 6th grader was like, what do you mean? It tells you why we do them. It's for mindset, specifically growth mindset. And I use them every day, and it really helps me focus on not just my band work, but also all my schoolwork, the blah, blah, blah. She went on and on and on. And I was like so impressed, right? And then
That's cool.
She got to 8th grade, in the beginning of the year, she was like, I'm tired of Mindset Mondays. The same girl. And I said, okay, and you don't remember saying how much you liked them? And she was like, yeah, and I regret it. And I'm like, all right then. Well, I got a message Friday from her, and Kaylin got it too. And she said, I just had my interview at a high school that I want to go to next year. And they were asking me about goal setting, and I brought up the Mindset Mondays we do.
Bam. It's huge.
So I'm just
It's
like,
huge.
the good news is I'm confident enough that we're doing the right thing and that we're providing them a quality experience that they will eventually appreciate. It just sucks going through it when they want to be rebellious and just little buttheads, you know?
Yeah.
You care so much about them.
Yeah. I think this has been a really cool episode because it's like there's so many times, especially when you're a presenter at FMEA and you can only really present what you need to present. But I've always found, and we had this conversation when we were doing the mentorship talk, was the idea of transparency of program, where it's like, I wonder how many people, if they're listening, how many people go through similar pass-offs or motivational systems in their program and then fight, you got to quote, fight the power, where you fight the hormones. And, it's like, well, they've always got the, it seems so like, people are making fun of me in my district where they're like, life just seems so great on Parker Avenue. And I'm like, can you shut the up? But, because of the hashtag.
Well, social media is deceiving.
It is, but it's I think this episode is a really good one because it's the idea of like transparency and like even as successful as we try to make ourselves feel, so we keep coming back to work and feeling good about it. There's always going to be those problems, and if you're a middle school band director, you're going to encounter the same burnout from your 8th graders in every program. Because you're right, kids are and they won't ever they won't see the value until they leave, kind of thing. Where it's like why do pass offs every quarter for 3 years? What does that get me besides being good at my instrument if that's not enough for you? And then they look back and go, oh, well, guess I'll just shut the up then.
Yeah, I mean, they all go through it at different paces, and some of them that are really bad, like, they can bring others with them, which really sucks. But then some of them don't go that way, and they just kind of just chill, because even though they might think it's dumb, they do understand that band has brought them value in some way. So they're like, I might not be doing this in high school, but I like Mr. Gordon or I like coming to class, so I'm just gonna chill. I'm not gonna rock the boat, you know what I mean? But some of them in my face, like, I'm not doing that, and I'm like, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah. My favorite, I did have one of those discussions real quick, and then we'll wrap up as we record the next episode. But like I did have a really cool conversation as I caught wind of certain 7th graders in my top band waning, like we were talking about earlier. I grabbed one of them and I was like, hey, what are you thinking? Like, just like, you're not like, at that point, they know they're not going to hurt my feelings. So I'm like, what you got? And she was just like, honestly, like, I have no desire to be first chair. I just kind of like chilling. And I was like, that's cool. Like, great. She's like, yeah, I was like, I like playing the music and pass offs are fine. It's just a matter of, she's like, I have no desire to be the leader. I would rather be 3rd chair and play 2nd trombone. And I'm like, great. Because you're great. So, okay. And that was just like a very, very cool conversation to have with a 13-year-old where they're that self-aware. And you don't kind of have to lead, because when you're a middle school band director or a middle school teacher, you have to lead kids through the logic sometimes. And she was very, very honest of just like, this is where I am and I'm doing band next year, but this is kind of where I want to be. And that's how it's going to be. And I'm like, all right, you're still in the room. Like, good. You're still in the room and you're holding your instrument. I'll take it. So cool, man. Well, this was a really cool conversation. I appreciated your insight on the first half of the episode as we kind of got into the discussion. It's good. A lot of good ideas. And this is a definite tag on to your pass off system that you and Kaylin did last year. I think maybe in the description of the YouTube video, we could probably put the link to that video in this one. Yeah. So that if people are jumping in the first time or they didn't go to the FBA session, they can see what we're talking about and then go back and listen again to this. And, these are not necessarily pitfalls, but like when pass offs get real and like some real conversations about how to mitigate that burnout. So
I'm thinking about having a week where pass offs don't exist and they're in an alternate reality where we do playing tests. Because some of them are like, I hate pass offs, this, that. Okay, well, I got to show you the alternative then.
Yeah, congratulations. You got a C on your concert B flat scale.
You cannot make it up.
Yeah, good for you. That's actually, you know what? That'd be kind of funny. I think we should do that. We should do that maybe not this coming week, but the week after that, because this week is still an ensemble, so I got to prepare my choirs.
I really need to do it at the beginning of the school year. That's probably the best time to do it.
In the second band and top band.
Yeah.
We got to make a note to do that so we can record it, because I think that'd be really funny.
Yeah, it would be.
Because like there are gonna be some kids that light up and then they do it and then they're gonna be like, this.
Yeah, and for some of them it's not gonna matter because they're gonna excel either way.
Right.
They're gonna get an A on the test or they're gonna pass the pass off, but not all of them. Yeah. And it's usually the ones that are like the ones that say they hate it. They're on the fence, like they're on the fence. So of either always passing their pass offs or they would not get 100 on whatever playing test we did.
Yep. Cool. Well, yeah, I'll put that in our pocket later. But let's. You want me to take it out?
Take it out.
This has been the Florida Band Podcast. Thank you for listening. We'll catch y'all later, baby.